Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I had a super busy day because it was a London Tech Week and then I had to go to like 2 different events, and I also had a meeting with a Californian firm at 10 p.m. Right now it's like 11:30, and I'm going to talk about something that I suffer whenever I am busy like this. I don't really struggle with this problem now because I've already experienced it and learned the lesson kind of a hard way, and that period of my life is exactly what I'm going to talk about in this video. So I think a lot of people in their 20s suffer from impulse buying or impulse eating, and I think that's because first, for the first time are earning money, we have the freedom to spend on what we want, and second, we don't have the guidance or we're not under the parental control anymore, that we can kind of spend it wherever, whenever we want. So I'm going to talk about my own problem, and I'm not going to give out a proactive advice because I'm not a therapist. I'm not. Everyone has a very, very different circumstance when it comes to eating, when it comes to purchasing decisions, financial situations. So because this is a very sensitive and personal topic, I'm going to talk about my problem, and you guys can either learn from it or relate to it. But yeah, so before I start, I just want to establish that it is super natural to have an emotional connection to food. Why? Because it's something legal, super accessible, something within it, as long as it's something within the budget. We naturally look for uh, emotional connection with the food. That's why we have our favorite food. And sometimes when we're stressed, we seek for high dopamine food like fast food, processed food. So the goal is to allow yourself to make a conscious decision about when, what, and how you eat, rather than completely banning some food or completely having something something just unrealistic with your food. So I'm going to talk about my problem, which is a very, very toxic cycle that I had with food. So this happened in my second year. And in my second year, I was going through a lot of things like mentally while I was in law school and also proactively trying to build my own company. It didn't work out, but either way, I learned a lot. But that was very stressful year. That was a very stressful year. It didn't work out, but either way, it was a very stressful year. I felt stressed, and that demotivated me to move or do anything productive, especially like cooking, right? So I would either go to a shopping spree in a supermarket for something very sweet or something very specific that I wanted. So I would rather go on like supermarket to go process food, or I would order something out from Deliveroo. This gave me an instant dopamine or instant gratification, as someone would say, that will lead to self-hatred and regret in both ways. Why? Because health, I gained the most weight in my second year, and I still find it kind of hard to go back to the version of me before then. And secondly, because of financial decisions, because I just had to look at Deliveroo for making this episode, and that time I was spending too much money on delivering. And you know how expensive like UK delivery fee is, and it led to a huge regret at the time. And I came up with new resolutions to stop myself from doing this, but obviously because the root cause, such as the mental health or the busy schedule, weren't very much fixed effectively, that resolution wasn't very easy to keep. And the fact that my resolution failed led to a greater sense of defeat and greater sense of self-betrayal. And I knew it wasn't a physical hunger, but very much so emotional eating, because I was craving for a very specific type of food, like typically sweet. And I had a powerful urge to eat that specific food. And budgeting, like I said, was out of control as well, because I spent so much on food that I didn't even enjoy. Like, I did not enjoy getting something super oily, getting something that made me feel bloated, but I just couldn't, like, I just had the urge to like get it. And it sounds so scary, like now that I say it out loud, but like that at the time it was like my way of resolving my stress. Partly it was because of the busy schedule, but partly I think it was because of the negative side of hustle culture. So, like I said, I was building my own company, and in my mind, someone who was building a company should have a lot of like huge processed food on the side of the table, wearing like a hoodie and neglecting their sleep schedule, weekend 24/7. That was the sort of like stereotype of a very successful founder that I had in my mind. But now I know that that's not the case. At the time, I was starting to treat that time of like cooking or taking care of my health as you know a waste of time, something that made me human. So yeah, the hustle culture imagery made me to treat what effectively makes us human being as a waste of time. But then for me, fortunately, if the bad cycles were cyclical, the good ones were also very cyclical. So these things were very much a momentum to me. Once I kept a good cycle of eating like whole food and less processed food, and I started to budget more wisely for my eating habits, it kept my day-to-day mood up high, and it helped me to like continue push it forward. One thing I also noticed was that I found it more efficient when I let myself eat whenever I want, like once or twice, instead of completely banning myself in an attempt to be perfect. Like I said, it's not an advisory session, and I did come up with a solution that was specifically applicable to me, and I'm going to talk about it in my next video. But um, yeah, this is a cycle that I find a lot of young 20s are going through, and it's definitely not the easiest topic to talk about. And I'm going to continue sharing my stories, so I would really appreciate if you guys could subscribe, and I'll see you later.